These days, everyone knows or should know that smoking, vaping, dipping, and snuffing, and yes, I did say vaping, are all terrible for your health.
People who smoke tobacco have a much higher incidence of depression than people who are non-smokers.
If you smoke, nicotine gum can help you quit.
We think that nicotine may act to actually enhance the activity of those systems in a way that makes people's attention and memory sharper.
What if the substance plastered on cigarette warnings and demonized in public health campaigns is secretly boosting productivity, laser-sharp focus, and memory in ways few understand? Meet nicotine, the misunderstood molecule. For decades, we've tied it to yellow teeth, lung cancer, and addiction. But its full story is far more complex and more shocking. The brain on nicotine, a moment of clarity. Picture this: you're groggy, distracted, and overloaded. Coffee isn't working. Then one puff or a stick of nicotine gum, and suddenly everything sharpens. Your brain snaps to attention like a camera lens focusing. This isn't placebo. Nicotine mimics a key neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, which helps regulate attention, learning, and memory. By binding to acetylcholine receptors, nicotine amplifies the brain's signals, boosting focus, reaction time, and alertness. Why nicotine feels like a mental superpower? Acetylcholine acts like your brain's internal project manager. When nicotine impersonates it, attention increases, energy spikes, and mental fog clears. That's why nicotine doesn't just stimulate, it rewires. Studies show nicotine improves performance on attention-demanding tasks. Soldiers, air traffic controllers, factory workers, even Wall Street traders have used it to stay sharp under stress. Today, nicotine gum and patches are gaining traction among students, coders, and gamers. Not to quit smoking, but to gain an edge. What the science says. Research confirms that nicotine enhances attention, memory, and learning, especially in people with cognitive deficits. A 2010 study in psychopharmacology showed nicotine improved attention and reaction times in both smokers and non-smokers. Dr. Paul Newhouse, director at Vanderbilt Center for Cognitive Medicine, has found nicotine especially effective in Alzheimer's and schizophrenia patients under medical supervision.
I'm directing the human translation of a novel molecule that we hope to target for Alzheimer's disease.
But he warns, we're not talking about lighting up a cigarette. We're talking about controlled doses of pure nicotine under medical supervision. The neurochemical reality. Nicotine exerts its powerful effects by targeting specific neural pathways, primarily through nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, NNA-RS. These receptors play a central role in regulating arousal, attention, memory, and even mood. When nicotine binds to them, it doesn't just switch them on, it stimulates a cascade of neurochemical activity. This includes the release of dopamine, which is crucial for motivation and reward, norepinephrine, which enhances alertness, and serotonin, which affects mood and emotional balance. According to Dr. Marina Picciotto, a neurobiology professor at Yale University, nicotine's effects on the brain's prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for decision-making and executive function, are particularly noteworthy. She explains that nicotine mimics the brain's natural learning signals, but she offers a critical warning. Nicotine doesn't just simulate natural activity, it hijacks it. This means it artificially activates systems meant to respond to real learning and novelty, creating a shortcut that bypasses genuine cognitive effort. The catch: withdrawal and decline. While nicotine may initially feel like a miracle drug for mental clarity, that benefit doesn't come free. Over time, the brain adjusts to its presence, gradually reducing its own natural production of the very neurotransmitters nicotine stimulates. In effect, the brain becomes dependent on nicotine to maintain its new normal. A 2013 study published in Brain Research found that chronic users experienced notable reductions in memory, attention, and processing speed during nicotine withdrawal. This cognitive decline isn't because the brain needs nicotine to function better. It's simply returning to its baseline, which now feels subpar due to chemical dependency. Dr. Neil Grunberg, a behavioral scientist, sums up this illusion succinctly. That focus you feel, it's not enhancement, it's withdrawal relief. Essentially, nicotine users aren't elevating performance. They're compensating for a deficit that nicotine itself has created. A gray zone, nicotine and ADHD. Nicotine's impact gets more complicated when it comes to individuals with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. These individuals often have underactive dopamine and acetylcholine systems, the same pathways nicotine influences. A 2011 study published in Neuropsychopharmacology discovered that nicotine could improve performance in adults with ADHD, particularly on tasks requiring sustained attention. For them, nicotine may act less like a stimulant and more like a neurochemical stabilizer, helping to normalize brain function. This sheds light on why people with ADH have higher rates of nicotine use. They're not necessarily chasing a buzz, but seeking a baseline level of focus and calm that others take for granted. However, Dr. Scott Collins, a clinical psychologist and ADHD researcher, strongly cautions against this form of self-medication. It's addictive, unregulated, and reinforces unhealthy behavior, he explains. Prescription stimulants like Adderall or Ritalin are much safer, more targeted, and far better understood, making them the preferable route under medical supervision. Long-term brain changes. Despite its short-term perks, nicotine is no friend to your brain over the long haul, especially when delivered through smoking or vaping. Chronic use leads to structural changes in the brain, many of which are difficult or impossible to reverse. Advanced imaging techniques like diffusion tensor imaging, DTI, reveal that long-term nicotine users exhibit white matter damage, particularly in brain regions involved in communication, emotional regulation, and executive control. This damage can dull emotional responses, slow down information processing, and impair mental flexibility. A 2020 review in Addiction Biology highlighted that nicotine's neuroadaptive effects closely resemble those seen in other substance addictions. Even though nicotine doesn't produce an overt high, the brain becomes rewired to expect nicotine as part of its operating routine. As a result, over time, a person's baseline mental functioning declines. They start feeling normal only when nicotine is present. In its absence, focus dips, mood drops, and cognitive sharpness fades. It's not enhancement anymore. It's maintenance. The dopamine trap. Nicotine floods the brain's reward system with dopamine, the same feel-good chemical triggered by chocolate, music, and love. This builds powerful emotional associations. Soon you don't just use nicotine for focus. You use it when you're bored, stressed, happy, or lonely. It becomes ritual, emotional, psychological. Your brain forgets how to regulate these feelings on its own. The hidden cost of enhanced focus. Nicotine tricks you into thinking you're operating at peak performance, but brain scans tell a darker story. Chronic users show reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, the center of judgment, planning, and impulse control. White matter deteriorates, attention span shortens, creativity and flexibility decline. Yes, you're focused, but in a narrow, rigid way. It's tunnel vision, not clarity. But not all nicotine is equal. Delivery methods matter. Smoking introduces thousands of harmful chemicals. Vaping may avoid some carcinogens, but emerging research shows its own lung risks. Nicotine gum and patches are safer, but still addictive. They can lead to tolerance, requiring more over time to feel the same effect. Eventually, you're not using nicotine to improve. You're using it just to function. Hope in the lab, the future of nicotine-inspired medicine. Scientists are now studying nicotinic agonists, lab-designed drugs that activate specific acetylcholine receptors without causing addiction. These may help treat Alzheimer's, schizophrenia, Parkinson's, and even ADHD. The goal? Precision without dependence. This shows nicotine isn't inherently evil. It's just poorly understood and dangerously misused. The illusion of control. The biggest lie nicotine tells? that you're in charge. But once dependence sets in, you're not boosting your brain. You're borrowing it on credit. And the interest rate is brutal, physically, mentally, emotionally. You begin to believe that you can't focus without it, that your brain doesn't work on its own, that nicotine is a necessity, not a tool. But that's false. The good news, recovery is possible. Your brain is capable of healing. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to adapt and rebuild, means focus and clarity can return naturally. It's not easy. Weeks of brain fog, irritability, and doubt may follow. But each nicotine-free day helps your brain restore its original wiring. You're not broken. You're healing. Final thoughts. Tool or trap? Is nicotine a brain enhancer? Yes, a powerful one. But it's also a trap. It offers quick wins at long-term cost. It sharpens the mind, then slices away your control. So the real question isn't whether nicotine works. It's whether the short-term gains are worth the long-term consequences. Whether you're willing to let a molecule hijack your brain's reward system just to feel focused, or whether you'll choose the harder path toward clarity without chemicals, control without dependence, and a brain that functions on its own terms. The choice is yours.